Coming up on United in Grief, Divided on Solutions. In the heart of Maine, a father's song inspired by immense loss after a mass shooting.
How are we to know all this day would change our lives?
A grief-stricken father now on a mission to create change.
People need to understand this pain isn't something that just goes away.
An entire state in pain now during a passionate gun debate.
But our gun laws suck. They're not safe.
I don't blame inanimate objects for perpetrating crime.
I think there's going to be some pressure on background checks.
Why shouldn't I have them? Why don't you trust me enough to let me have them?
This story is in Maine, but this is the story and debate across America. A nation united in grief, but divided on solutions.
My son was one of those 18 precious souls.
Episode 1, Grief and Guns. We've spent the last several years in North Carolina trying to tell political stories in a different way, to bring back those viewers and listeners who feel disenfranchised by the current political discourse. You know, the bickering and tired talking points. Our path has led the discussion back into the heart of our communities, with less focus on the institutions and politicians, instead of refocus on people and the human spirit. In this North Carolina journey, we've been blessed with success. We've won awards and people are watching. So this year, in this massive 2024 election year, we're blessed to take our coverage beyond state lines. And we start with gun violence, a topic that resonates in every community across the country. And we have traveled all over the country, and society is hell-bent in focusing on differences. But we found we share a lot more than we think, including some differences. In January, we traveled across Maine, a place where gun violence is playing out dramatically after a mass shooting in October ended with 18 people dead. Now a renewed debate over gun laws in a state known for relaxed restrictions. While this story takes place in Maine, the debate will sound familiar. The special 3-part show, United on Grief, Divided on Solutions, takes us to Lewiston to meet the father of a man killed in that shooting. We'll head to the coast and meet a gun collector and sportsman with a laugh you'll never forget. We'll hear the passionate gun debate playing out in Maine since the shooting, then a sober look at where things stand and what's next, including the battle to change or leave laws alone. As a state and a nation stand united in grief, but divided on solutions. The opening notes to a song inspired by tragedy. It's winter in Maine. Bright snow blankets the cold ground, but a dark grief lingers in the air like a winter fog.
Seems like just yesterday, I was driving myself downtown.
To an outsider, Lewiston largely looks normal, but deep down this community feels an intense pain. A unique kind of pain a community feels after a mass shooting.
How was I to know this day would change our lives?
Arthur Barnard's song mourns those lost as an intense gun debate plays out across Maine.
You can blame it on a million other things, but our gun laws suck.
Why don't you trust me enough to let me have them? What is it about me that you look at and say we need to make a rule so you can't have that?
The national spotlight and all the TV cameras are gone, but Lewiston and Maine still live with the aftermath.
Picking up the pieces from 18 shattered lives.
Just ask Arthur Barnard. 18 lives lost, one of those, his son.
18 souls so beautiful, all gone in a flash. An angry, troubled man with a gun tied in his hands. 18 souls.
In Arthur Barnard's home, you'll see a few photos of his son Arthur Strout, better known as Artie. An 8x10 photo sits in eyesight on top of a piano.
It's taken me all of this time, 2 or 3 months, to even be able to look at his pictures. To be able to look. So it's tough.
I first heard of Arthur reading several articles in the Portland Maine newspaper. On a whim, this past New Year's Eve, I messaged him on Facebook. I told him we were coming to Maine to do a story on gun violence and would love to meet him. To be honest, I didn't think he would respond. But literally, the very next day, New Year's Day 2024, he responded and said yes. We messaged back and forth for a few weeks until late January when we flew to Maine. Arthur lives in a modest 2-story townhome near Lewiston, a blue-collar city of some 37,000 people. It's Maine's second largest city that sits between Portland and Augusta, the state capital. As you cross over the Androscoggin River, huge white letters spelling out Lewiston greet you. Frankly, it reminds you of thousands of towns this size across the country. Arthur, a 62-year-old with wispy gray hair, sits in a recliner in his living room. The lights are off, except one pointed in his direction. A somber spot to painfully recall what happened that fateful night. It was October 25th, 2023. Artie called his dad.
And I was tired, and he called me up. He said, hey, Dad, what are you doing? Where you at? I said, I'm in town taking care of some stuff. He says, you got some time.
Artie wanted to play pool.
And I said, I almost didn't. And then I said, okay. He says, sure. I says, I'll meet you at your house.
His dad suggested Shemengi's, a local pool hall, and they met up. But after a few games, Arthur decided it was time to head home.
I know I was getting tired, and I had to get up at 4 in the morning to go to work. So I says, I gotta call it a night, guys. And he said, okay, Dad.
4 miles away, a 40-year-old man named Robert Card hurriedly left just-in-time recreation. He was hosting a youth bowling league that night. Police reports show Card walked in and killed 7 people there, was now heading towards Shemengi's. It was chaos as police warned people to stay inside.
I suggest that you go. We have an active shooter, and we're not sure where he's at as of this moment, okay? Keep yourself safe.
Thank you.
My ex-wife called me up and she says there's a live shooter at Shemengi's pool hall right now. And she didn't know I was there. She didn't know I had just left or anything. So now I says, you must be mistaken. I says, I seen all the police cars heading up Main Street. And so she hung up and she called back 30 seconds later. She says, no. She says, it's happening right now at Shemengi's.
Arthur was just 10 minutes down the road.
My heart sank. Because as you walk in the place, there's 2 pool tables right there to your right. We were about 20 feet on the second table. And I knew if a gunman went in there, he was one of the first people. And he always stayed by the table. He never wandered around the place,
Barnard headed to the hospital with his family, hoping his son was not a victim. The state essentially shut down, and a manhunt ensued. Governor Janet Mills held a news conference that aired not only in Maine, but across the country.
But Mr. Card is considered armed and dangerous, and police advise that Maine people should not approach him under any circumstances.
These nurses came out and said, people were asking, is so-and-so here, is so-and-so here? And finally one of them told my daughter-in-law that my son was there, said he was alive. couldn't tell us anything else. I'm thinking, oh my God, that's unbelievable. You know, really, it's unbelievable.
Sadly, the nurse was wrong. And the next day, they found out Artie was one of 11 victims shot and killed at Schemengees, 18 in total that night.
Joseph Lawrence Walker, 57.
The public would find out in a news conference the next day.
Arthur Fred Strout, 42. Just have a moment of silence. Thank you.
Days later, Robert Card was found dead with a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and the lockdown was lifted.
I stand here tonight to simply report that the Maine State Police have located the body of Robert Card in Lisbon. He is dead. I've called President Biden to inform him about this news.
A moment of relief, but also grief, for 18 people ranging in age from 14 to 76. Another emotional news conference led by Governor Mills.
Look, Lewiston is a special place. It's a close-knit community with a long history of hard work, of persistence, of faith, of opening its big heart to people everywhere. Lewiston is where I worked for years. It's where I met and married my husband and where our girls went to school. I love this place just as I love our whole state with my entire heart.
It was Maine's worst mass shooting ever and the nation's 10th deadliest mass shooting. Artie was married to his wife, Christy. They had a blended family of 5 kids. He was known for his relentless hugs and goofy giggle. A nation grieving, Arthur Barnard, he could barely function.
There was a day where I sat in a parking lot for 5 hours and just screamed. I don't know why they didn't call the police. I was sitting outside of Dunkin' Donuts. I was on my way to work, but the place is only a mile from here, and I got my coffee and I pulled over for a minute to make sure my coffee was stirred, you know, shaking my cup around, and that was the end of my day. I called work. I don't know if I even called work. I don't think I could. I completely went off the deep end, and it took me well over 4 hours to be able to call somebody because I couldn't move, I couldn't leave, I couldn't get out of my car, I couldn't talk to anyone. It's been a few days.
18 souls so beautiful, I'm gone in a flash. An angry, troubled man with a gun tied in his hands.
In our travels across Maine, nearly every person we met described the state the same way.
Maine is very independent.
We heard that word independent as often as we saw moose crossing signs.
I think that people, for the most part, that live in Maine want to be able to live their own lives the way that they see fit. They don't like to have intrusion from outside sources. You'll hear a lot of people say that they don't trust people that are from away.
Not just culturally, but politically as well.
I think there's a conservative streak that runs through there. I'm a Democrat, proud of it, but conservative, moderate.
Maine is this unique little place on the East Coast where we still have freedoms. We still have a rural tradition around here that is disappearing in a lot of the country.
And perhaps no one embodies that more than that voice, from the one and only Rob Duhame.
So I brought all kinds of guns, like I said, because I didn't know, really, I don't know. I didn't know what you guys were really into, so I just threw a bunch of stuff in the truck.
Not far from the coast, near the town of Surrey, we travel snowy gravel roads for miles until the road comes to an opening.
We'll start with the 22s, because this is my favorite right now.
It's here deep in the woods, near the majestic coast of Maine, we meet a man with a passion.
I really did. I brought all kinds of cool guns.
You may not know Rob Duhame.
This is the one from Jurassic Park. You know, where the raptors are about to eat the guy and he goes, "Clever girl," and they munch him. Yeah.
But I guarantee you'll never forget him.
I mean, some people are gonna watch this. And
Yeah.
They're gonna. Just to be
Oh,
blunt, they're gonna call you
that
crazy.
guy's a gun nut. I'll be like, yeah, I am. I totally am. Try this one. I'm okay with that.
The middle-aged bald Mainer wearing a flannel is not a hunter, he's a collector.
This is kind of going original, OG, AR-15.
As soon as we get out of our cars, he began pulling case after case out of his pickup truck.
So have you counted? Do you know how many you own?
No. I started counting them the other day, actually, and I was like, hit around 100, and I was like, you need to just stop.
So at least 100.
At least 100, yeah. It is a collection.
I mean, this is a hobby for you,
Yeah.
right?
The best part of the hobby, though, is the fact that every gun I bring out here, I bring it out here so people can shoot it. You know, what's the point in having something hanging on the wall and never letting anybody use it, you know? Cool that you have 4 race cars parked in a garage that you never take out of the garage. I want to take them out of the garage. I want other people to drive them, you know? And to me...
Is that a fair type of comparison then, though? Like, people collect cars. Like, people collect cars, you collect guns.
I would think so, absolutely. I mean, what does Jay Leno need so many cars for? I mean, he's got fascinating cars that are historical, cars that are, you know, he doesn't need any of them, does he? I don't need any of these, but they're fun.
But the massive collection does not collect dust either.
So here's the deal with the game. Shoot for the 8, you got 10 rounds. Shoot for the 8, if you hit the 8, you score 1 point. Now you can move to the 6, or you can stay on the 8. If you move to the 6 and you hit it, you've scored 2 points. Now you can shoot for the 4-inch. If you hit the 4-inch, it's 3 points. But if you miss on any of those shots, you have to go back to the previous gong.
300 yards, a gun, and 3 small gongs. He calls the game long gone.
There it is.
Rob's sitting at a table of sorts. Picture a modified picnic table with the gun propped up on top of the table. Straight ahead, a forest of trees. But a long, narrow opening cleared some 300 yards to the very end where 3 gongs hang side by side from a horizontal metal pole like a swing set. It's more than a game to Duhaime. He considers it a sport.
The thing I love about being out here in the school of shooting that I do, you know, with the 22s, is that it's a zen moment. You know, it's when you sit down at the bench and you have to focus everything until it's just you and the target and the trigger. You have to make everything else go away. And I love making that moment of peace, that moment where I'm not thinking about anything else in the world. And if you can't find that focus, you can't do what we do out here. 300 yards with a 22 at a 4-inch target is a pretty difficult shot for anybody.
And it's gaining traction beyond Maine since he started posting videos online.
Hi and welcome to Rob's Little Long Range. It's pretty cold out here this morning, but I've got some new gongs hung, and we're going to do a test today. Right now, I've got 3 8-inch gongs hung. It all started with just our passion for shooting 22s out here. You know, me and my whole group of friends. And since then, it's grown to, there's people in other states, in other countries that are playing the game that we started playing out here. And that, to me, that puts a grin on my face every time I think about it. First match in Australia was last weekend. They've played a few matches in Poland. Where else have they played? Several places here in the United States, Michigan, Ohio, Massachusetts, and all from a bunch of silly fools out in the woods.
Is it the videos? Is that how they picked up on it?
Because I'm I share a lot on Facebook, and I try to, you know, I'm on a lot of different gun groups, so I share what we're doing out here, and people have definitely caught on.
Practice makes perfect, and we saw it firsthand, along with that familiar laugh.
Easy, a couple thousand rounds downrange before I was able to do that. And now I've gone 9 for 10 on a 4-inch gong at 300 yards. First shot.
Despite that smile, despite that laugh, he's as serious about fighting to keep these guns as he is hitting that 4-inch gong.
Why shouldn't I have them? Why don't you trust me enough to let me have them? What is it about me that you look at and say, we need to make a rule so you can't have that?
Next time on United in Grief, Divided on Solutions.
People need to understand this pain isn't something that just goes away.
Arthur Barnard inspired to write much more than a song. He wants to help write a new future for America.
So much bigger than any one of these mass shootings.
He heads to Washington and meets with other victims' families from mass shootings.
This is why the hell haven't people done the right thing?
Then, despite a history of relaxed gun laws, as the calendar turns to 2024, the gun control debate ramps up in the state capitol and beyond.
So it's not all about taking guns. It really isn't.
I think, if anything, people with firmly held positions have become even more firmly held in those positions.
I think there's going to be some pressure on background checks.
Criminals don't submit to background checks.
18 souls. 18 souls.
United in Grief, Divided on Solutions is a Tying It Together with Tim Boehm and Spectrum News at 1 production. Subscribe to Tying It Together for our regular weekly release, and please rate and review. We'll talk to you next week.